Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the webinar on Acronis Cyber Protect. And specifically, today's webinar will be about ransomware attacks and how to use Acronis solutions to mitigate them. My name is Nikolai Churkin. I'm a senior solutions engineer with Acronis. And today, for the agenda, we will first have a brief general overview of why cyber protection is essential in today's business. We will have an overview of our product, Acronis Cyber Protect, which specifically tackles ransomware, among other threats, both accidental data loss and malicious data loss. And for that, we will, of course, see why ransomware is on the rise, what is ransomware, how it affects the system, and how Acronis helps you protect against ransomware. So for that, I have a little demo where I will run piece of ransomware, and we'll see how Acronis, what Acronis does to do that, to protect against it. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A section. I have it on my other screen here. We will have the questions preferably in the end, but please feel free to post them anytime. Right, so don't use the chat window, use Q&A. It will be better to see your questions there. Okay, so on that, let's go further and let's see what Acronis is about and why we are talking about ransomware in particular. So ransomware is probably the most infamous type of attack these days because it's effective. It brings money to whoever creates it, and it's an example of that malicious data loss that can occur. But in general, the endpoints, the workloads are under attack, and if and from the data protection perspective, we at Acronis realized that back a couple of years ago, maybe the primary cause of data loss would be an inadvertent loss of a file, accidental loss of a file, accidental deletion of data, failure of a hard drive, and so on. But nowadays, the data loss or the data loss of different kinds happen as a result of data breaches, as a result of viruses and other types of malware, including ransomware. The way ransomware gets, we'll see that in the subsequent slides, is often via email or via network, and something that contributes to this propagation of ransomware is actually the systems being not up to date, the systems having security holes. Sometimes those security holes are due to not updated software. And in fact, if we take a look at the average time it takes people to patch their software, it is several months, right? Maybe for the operating system itself, it's not that big, but for third-party programs, it is the case, and each of such programs can be a potential threat. And also the other challenge, and it applies to ransomware as well, is that many breaches are known as zero-day attacks. So it's some new piece of malware, including ransomware, which uses that opportunity, the fact that it is not yet known to the majority of antiviruses. It's not yet in the signature databases, and it uses that opportunity to infect as many systems as possible, during those few crucial days for it, right? And you see that in particular case of ransomware, 60% of enterprises have been hit. So that causes reputational damage, of course, that causes data loss, and so on. We'll talk about that. Ransomware in general, it's something whose some piece of malicious software whose purpose is to steal the data or to eventually to extort money from their victims. So there are two main ways. The most widespread way is it encrypts the data on the disk and then asks for Bitcoin, for money in general, to decrypt that data, blocks access to the system in other cases. And also sometimes it is combined with actually taking a copy of that data to the attacker's resources and threatening to expose that data in part or in full to others as well. So yeah, different kinds of notifications, but in general, there is a countdown until the data is permanently deleted. So the ransomware encrypts the data with a specific password key that only that ransomware knows, and yeah, that's a time-sensitive matter. And of course, sometimes they also warn about you contacting the police and then delete the data immediately, right? But that's the workflow. I know they even have their own support service, right? If you have troubles paying with Bitcoins, they will help you, but they are pretty they're pretty tough in requesting that in a timely manner. So why is it dangerous? The ransomware, its main purpose is to make people pay for the data. Otherwise, they will lose it. If people are not ready to pay for the data, well, maybe they have backups that they're ready to recover from. Then the additional vector of attack is blackmailing people into revealing sensitive data. So unless they pay, some confidential information becomes available. And another purpose of ransomware is actually to cut off ways to restore the data. So in this regard, what ransomware typically does these days is it, before actually exposing itself and before encrypting the data, before notifying you about that, it looks for the means of, essentially it looks for the backups, right? And if it finds a backup vendor software like Acronis or Veeam or something else, it doesn't matter. And when it finds the backups, it deletes the backups first before going ahead and encrypting the data. Right, so it's important to realize in this regard that if someone relies on the backups, they should really be reliable and not just backups until the first ransomware attack. And preferably, the piece of software that does the backups is supposed to actually protect them further against that malicious deletion. Right, so the backups should be immutable in that regard to avoid cutting off ways to restore that data. In terms of spreading, the ransomware is well, the majority of ways that ransomware gets into the system is through malicious websites or through email, but also it may be some sort of USB stick lying in a parking lot with some data on it, and as soon as that USB stick is in one system, then ransomware may spread itself over the network and infect the rest of the systems. So in terms of the ways to protect against ransomware, again, if we talk about an ideal situation, an ideal ransomware protection tool, it shouldn't just tackle ransomware itself, right? It should also account for potential ways for ransomware to spread, right? It should account for ransomware trying to spread over the local network, or ransomware trying to encrypt something, some other files available to this specific computer over the local network, and prevent that as well. In the same way, it prevents ransomware acting on the local computer. Other ways, if some other computer is infected, then your computer running that ransomware tool is supposed to be able to protect against those incoming threats. So it's some sort of a server-side protection for the software. So let's keep that in mind, and let's see how these points are addressed by Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud when we actually see that product in action. Ransomware attacks. So we are in the middle of March today, and I collected some cases for the previous 2 months. Just 3 cases out of many reports from our cyber protection operations centers. In Acronis, we have 3 cyber protection operation centers in Singapore, in the US, and in Switzerland, which are supposed to operate around the clock, at least one of them, right? And update information about the newly appearing viruses, ransomware attacks, and so on, collecting and analyzing that information. And they also provide reports for the most notable attacks over the past few months. And so one of those attacks was with oil tanking. So it's a company based in Germany. I tried to collect, examples from different places. So the problem with this attack was that it, the company itself, right? As you see, it supplies 2,000 gas stations, and the ransomware attack is specifically affected the systems that were taking part in distributing fuel, so automatically distributing fuel, and there were no immediate ways to actually fail over to manual management, so the systems had to be disconnected, and that led to issues in supplying fuels, delays in fuel delivery there. So that was mitigated. We are not aware of any ransom paid, but at least that attack happened, and the systems were not protected. We always recommend, of course, running anti-ransomware tools not only on the users' machines, but also on the servers, or all on the computers that are taking part in some production processes, like in this case, right? So it may affect anyone. Another example is this snacks provider in the UK, KP Snacks, was attacked by Conti ransomware, pretty widespread piece of ransomware there, and that particular attack, not only did it encrypt the data, right, the main purpose for ransomware, but it actually stole sensitive documents, and I think even made some of them available as part of blackmail. So to reiterate, this is another threat, right, from ransomware. Even if you can restore from it, you should be aware that unless you actually block that piece of ransomware in the very early stage, you risk at least having your sensitive information exposed as well, right? By the way, we'll talk also about the ways that Acronis is protecting and will be protecting further the systems against data leaks. So it's not directly related to ransomware, but it is related to actually protecting the data. Okay, and also another example, Accenture. It's essentially a worldwide company. It fell victim to another piece of ransomware called Lockbit. Actually, that ransomware affected lots of different companies of different sizes, including Accenture. A huge ransomware was demanded. Also, as in the case of KP Snacks, there was a threat of certain data being exposed, but also one of the reasons I put this example here is that ransomware specifically targeted Linux servers, right? So we all know it's kind of a common, kind of a cliche, right? That ransomware and malware in general, it mostly affects Windows systems, right? Maybe also Mac systems, but mostly Windows. And here, that's a significant shift because those Linux servers were targeted. So one, it's a reminder not to forget about Linux and Mac servers. They are maybe not equally vulnerable, but they are vulnerable. That's one point. And another point is it wasn't just a set of random Linux servers for that company. These were the Linux servers, which were essentially VMware ESXi servers. So these were the virtualization hosts that were hosting various systems, various operating systems, various virtual machines. And so compromising one of those hosts or a series of those hosts actually led to compromising those systems as well, and no matter which programs, which applications were running there. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's if we go back to considerations for an ideal or acceptable anti-ransomware protection, you need to keep in mind, we already discussed it being able to protect against network attacks, to be able to act quickly, to be able to protect against zero-day attacks, so based on behavior against something that is not yet known. And also, ideally, it needs to protect not only the most widespread systems, not only the Windows systems, but other operating systems as well, because ransomware attacks all of those. And now let's consider maybe one or two more slides, and then switch to the demo of the product. Yeah, as a reminder, I keep an eye on Q&A, so feel free to ask questions there. I will answer them as soon as I can. And before we actually see what Acronis Cyber Protect is about, the general approach, right? So we discussed all those requirements for anti-ransomware protection. We also saw that first slide telling us that ransomware protection is part of a wider set of protection tools that are supposed to be present for a good cyber protection policy. And what we actually are working on, and what we will see in the particular example of ransomware protection, but also in a general sense, that if you are supposed to have multiple tools to ensure that protection, but if these are independent tools, that adds complexity to that overall security standing of the systems, right? And that they're prone to misconfiguration, to more expenses, to more education for the staff. And so in Acronis, Acronis Cyber Protect, that we'll see in a moment, we actually combine the cybersecurity component that we will be focusing on today, talking about ransomware, reliable backup and recovery. So you still have that backup component in case you still suffer an accidental data loss, for example, and also management of devices. So the anti-ransomware protection can be applied to all the devices in your environment. We have easy ways to install those agents, those pieces of Acronis software onto all endpoints within your network, and centrally protect those endpoints against ransomware and against all other threats that we've discussed. Okay, so all this integration actually reduces costs and increases the probability that your system is protected in the acceptable way. Okay, so now let me have a few more slides, but I want to switch to the demo. And during the demo, I will ask my colleague to probably run the poll, because as we discuss what we have, and if you realize that you need maybe a deeper level discussion of certain things, or you need a follow-up with our account management team, feel free to let us know about that. Okay, and in the meantime, I'm switching to the demo. I will share my screen shortly. All right, so I hope that you can see my screen, if it's okay. And what we will start, I have a machine in my environment in Azure that has Acronis Cyber Protect installed on it. And for this machine, we'll see a few things. So first, we'll see the overall console, the management console of Acronis. Then on this machine, let me probably minimize this browser. On this machine, I also have a folder on the desktop with some piece of ransomware on it. I mean, I have a folder with some documents here, and WannaCry ransomware, or at least simulator, that we have. And we'll see how Acronis tackles that ransomware, what happens if I run that ransomware with Acronis present, and what happens if I turn off Acronis protection and run that again, right? So first, let's take a look here. So this is the Acronis console, and this is the way you set up protection. You do that through protection plans. Here on in the console, you'll have a dashboard which will show you the latest events, how protected your systems are. You have the list of devices, which is not very populous in my case, but it can store lots of devices, like thousands of devices. You can manage them centrally. You can organize them into groups. You can automatically protect all devices, or devices matching certain criteria, like a particular operating system they're running, or particular name of the machine, or something like that. And the idea for the Acronis solution is to give you this flexible protection and centralized way of managing your endpoints. Now, for the machine, since we're talking about ransomware, I have a protection plan which is quite small. I mean, in terms of selected features. So in a general protection plan, if we have time, we'll see that in the end of the webinar. But as a general protection plan, you have all those layers of protection: backup, protection against malicious websites, protection against ransomware, antiviruses, automatically patching the security holes, and so on. In this case, I just applied a plan specifically with antivirus and anti-malware protection. What do we have here? In active protection is the feature of Acronis that actually works with ransomware protection. So what do we have here? Once it detects ransomware, it is supposed to revert changes using cache. So what does this mean? The active protection feature, it constantly monitors the data changes as they happen on the disk, right? And it can distinguish some legitimate data changes. So for example, someone's working on a document and after editing the document, the intrinsic structure of the document doesn't change, right? So it's a legitimate change, or a database is being changed, or there can be a malicious change, like some program changes the document, so it just a bunch of random characters, right? So this is consistent with a ransomware attack, right? Or otherwise, if it's not about documents, it's about executable files and so on. So if the header of the file changes, it is also consistent with the ransomware attack. So we have all those ways to distinguish normal files and encrypted files. Now, the application itself, that malware, that ransomware, it doesn't need to be known doesn't need to be previously known to our software. So the active protection engine, it doesn't actually use any sort of signature databases or antivirus databases. What it uses is its behavior analysis tool, right, to distinguish those changes. And as soon as it discovers that that particular change is consistent with ransomware, then it does three things with this default settings. First, it of course notifies you. So when we run that ransomware, we expect to see that notice on the dashboard. It also stops that piece of ransomware, so it doesn't encrypt. It cannot work further. Doesn't encrypt further files, and it actually uses a reverting using cache. So essentially, it knows the content of the file as it was immediately before that ransomware attack. So not only does the agent keeps track of the changes, I mean, the ways the changes happen, but it also memorizes the content. So this is helpful if you work on the file, if maybe you already have a backup like from yesterday or from a week ago. That backup is too old, right? But that real-time cache is indeed real-time. So as soon as something happens, you have the cache, you revert from it. It doesn't mean that you don't need to have a backup, right? That cache is limited in size, and you always should have a backup anyway. But this cache is quite helpful, right? And there are other settings as well. We will discuss them, but first let's see what we have here. So I have this ransomware plan applied. So that system is supposed to be protected. And what do I have here? I have a few files, well, just document files with some text in them. And I run this file that is supposed to encrypt everything in this folder. Let's do that. The files are supposed to be now encrypted by that process. So we open those files, and actually they're not encrypted. And maybe you noticed that the time changed. So in the time zone of this machine, it's 10:29, and the files were a bit older. Now they've changed to this timestamp. What actually happened is that piece of ransomware tried to encrypt those files, tried to make them gibberish and actually rename them as well. Active Protection noticed that. It notified, we will see the dashboard, it notified us about the error, about the attempted attack, and it actually memorized immediately before allowing that malicious program to encrypt the files. It actually memorized the content, and it immediately restored that content to that previous point in time. Let's check if we got actually notified. I see something red here. So yeah, suspicious activity. If we go to alerts, these files were attempted to be encrypted. We actually, the threshold for us is, I think, 7 or 8 files in a row that something tries to encrypt, right, and tries to modify in a malicious way. That's a good sign for us that it's a ransomware. And so that's what we did here. And also in the dashboard, that thing showing you overall security standing, you will also see those notifications. You will see this alert here and so on. And so the files are back. They were protected. The ransomware was stopped, and the cache was used to restore from that real-time copy. Let's go back to the settings for the protection plan. I do keep in mind that I need to turn this off afterwards and show you what actually happens when you don't have Acronis. But before that, I want to show you what else we have, and that's kind of consistent with what I was discussing in the beginning of the webinar. So what we have here, network folder protection turned on, right? Now, network folder protection means that if the piece of ransomware tries to encrypt not this local folder, but something attached to your drive, to your computer as a network drive, as a network folder, that will also be blocked. So Acronis keeps monitoring those changes. It also keeps a cached version of the files from those network folders. It keeps them locally. And the same behavior repeats there, right? Something tries to change those files in the network folder, that gets stopped. Server-side protection, well, it's off for this plan. I can turn it on. Remember my other concern in the beginning of the webinar, that you may be fine and you have Acronis or some other anti-ransomware tool. Well, let's assume it's Acronis, right? Because we're talking about Acronis. So you have Acronis protecting your system, but someone in your network doesn't have Acronis installed, and that piece of ransomware is running there, and it tries to infect you over network. So server-side protection will make sure that that fails, right? So your files are safe, whether you happen to have ransomware on your computer or whether someone else's computer trying to encrypt files on yours, right? So that's part of the protection scheme here. The next part is self-protection. Self-protection is also important. And remember my other point from the beginning of the webinar, that sometimes, I mean, one of the points, one of the reasons for ransomware attacks, one of the properties is that it tries to cut off the ways for you to restore the data, to increase the probability that you will pay money, essentially, right? So to that end, ransomware tries to identify the backups, delete them first, and then go ahead and protect the data. So self-protection does two things. First, it protects the backups. So if you have a local backup and you try to delete it, I mean, and if you're ransomware, right, and you try to delete, that will be blocked. And also the Acronis process in memory will also be protected against being stopped or deleted. So ransomware cannot just delete the Acronis process from memory, then backups become unprotected, deletes the backups, then encrypts the data, asks for Bitcoins, right? So that self-protection is quite powerful. And I think I have some local backups here. So let me try to open them. So it's one of the files here. Let me try to, let me pretend to be ransomware by using a file manager and try to delete the backup here. So you see, it doesn't allow me to do it, right? That's because the Acronis agent protects those backups against being changed or deleted. Likewise, if I let me run the list of services here, right? And we'll see the Acronis components. I will, excuse me, I will also pretend to be ransomware. And so I'll try to delete the okay. So what I'll try to delete a service. I'll try to stop. I cannot do it from services. If I were a piece of software trying to delete that also on the level of the operating system, that would be impossible to do. Right, so Acronis Cyber Protection Service protects itself, protects Acronis components against being stopped or deleted, and that in turn helps us protect the local backups as well. Okay, so now what else do we have? We have crypto mining process detection. Sometimes, okay, well, it's not ransomware as such, right? But it's part of active protection mechanism. So sometimes the attackers don't steal your data in exchange for Bitcoins. Sometimes they just want to use your resources to mine Bitcoins or whatever cryptocurrency they favor for them, right? So they just use your CPU, your battery, your memory, and so on. And so active protection, in addition to protecting against ransomware as such, it also monitors the processes, the applications whose behavior is consistent with this sort of crypto mining processing, right? And it stops them as well, right? So what should we do now? Let's probably revoke this plan. So now the machine is unprotected. It will take a few minutes, or few seconds, rather, I hope, to actually apply the new settings, or actually revoke the settings from the agent. And what we expect to see now, well, first of all, I was trying to delete a backup, right? And Acronis didn't allow me to do it. Now, hopefully, this, this is not a recorded demo, so I don't know what will happen, but hopefully everything will happen as I expect. Yeah, now the backup is deleted. So, and if I were ransomware, I would delete everything, and then I would encrypt your data and left you no chance, go into the backup and restore something, right? So that protection is off. Now, if we go to ransomware itself, so it's the same folder, same file I was running, and let me run it again. And now this is what actually happened, right? It's just that we mitigated that threat and we reverted everything. But this is actually how ransomware worked, right? And this is how it works without Acronis protection. So it encrypts all the data. It renames it to make it absolutely clear the situation we're in. And of course, if I just rename it back to docx, that won't help, because if I try to open that, let's change it. So if I try to open it, that will be total. That should be a total mess. Okay. Maybe a caching problem. Let me open something else. So that will be an encrypted file. At least this is what I expect. Here that won't help in resolving the issue, right? So let's sort of empty spaces And if I rename something else, that will also be, I think, not very informative here, right? So that is okay, like this, right? So all those files are like it, and so the this is ransomware in action, and this is ransomware without Acronis protection. With Acronis protection, we immediately identified the encryption. The file was encrypted like this, but we happen to have its cached version, right? That we reverted and made the file healthy again, right? So that's what we have. Let me take a look at the questions, and okay, none at the moment. So let me remind you about the poll. If I actually don't see if the poll is active, but if it is, just feel free to answer the poll questions. And so in terms of, yeah, thank you. And in terms of other options here, so while I'm waiting for the questions, let me show you something in this console that we have beyond ransomware protection. So to my point that we are an integrated solution. So I'm selecting this machine, I go to protect, and now let me create a new plan rather than reapplying that ransomware plan, just to show you quickly what we have in terms of that level of protection. So first, we of course have backup, and that's what we've traditionally been focusing on. It's by default, it's a backup of an entire machine to a location of your choice. It can be the cloud, it can be local storage, it can be tape device, and so on. An important thing here is that in addition to backing up in a traditional way on schedule, once a day, once an hour, or once a week, you can back up in a continuous fashion, right? So you can indicate certain types of data or certain folder that you care about, and whenever there's a change there, it will be backed up immediately. So this way you account for a situation that you have those, let's say, nightly backups, but a disaster happens in the middle of the day after you've been working on an important spreadsheet since the morning. You know that even though your operating system and all the applications are in that nightly backup, your recent files, your recent spreadsheets are already backed up, let's say, to the cloud, and you can restore from that. So you recover the system itself from yesterday's backup. That's okay. Not a lot of changes happened. And also you restore all the recent documents from the continuous backup. So that's how Acronis is different in allowing you to make sure that none of your essential data is lost. Right. What else? So we were here in active protection, right? We discussed all these options. But in addition to active protection, the component that tackles specifically the ransomware, we have antivirus that will be scanning your system like in a traditional way, everything you would expect from an antivirus that will be scanning your system for known viruses, updating the signature databases once a day or several times a day. But also remember that our focus is on zero-day attacks, among other things. And this antivirus, in addition to scanning for known threats, it has this behavior engine that will be tackling unknown threats, just based on the way certain applications behave, the way they want to exploit the system, the way they want to maybe hijack some resources. That will be enough to qualify this piece of ransomware as malicious and block it, right? So next, yeah, I see the questions coming. Let me take a few moments to show you the rest of this, and then go to the questions. Please, in the meantime, please keep the questions coming. URL filtering, that's another useful feature here, because remember, again, from the beginning of the webinar, sorry for quoting myself all the time, but one of the ways, remember, for ransomware or something else to propagate to your network was people visiting certain websites, certain malicious websites, maybe phishing websites or websites with viruses. URL filtering helps protect your system against visiting those sites. So as soon as someone from any browser on that system tries to open that malicious site, or tries to download something via a malicious link, Acronis agent will block access to that link, to that content. Okay, and in addition to that, there's a categorization here as well. So it's not directly related to, purely malicious site, but it's rather related to the categories of the data. Like people are not supposed to use third-party email or social networks at work, or some web hosting to leak the sensitive data there, sensitive documents there. So you can limit by the categories, or this is my favorite as well. So you can limit by those categories, and we will block access to those sites, right? So it's not only ransomware protection solution, it's not only backup solution, but it's a general internet usage policy solution. And nowadays, when people keep working remotely, that's essential. I mean, we don't know which laptops, which computers they're working from, right? These own devices are often beyond the traditional control by IT administrators. But you can use this, you can remotely assign that policy. As long as that Acronis agent is running, that machine doesn't need to be in a domain, doesn't need to have any corporate tools installed, but Acronis will protect it that way. And another pair of tools here is vulnerability assessment and patch management here. So this is, I like to call it a proactive protection, because the purpose of this is to protect against ransomware or against something else by keeping the systems up to date, and so diminishing the attack surface in the first place, right? So often there are security holes in different applications. Windows kind of take care of itself, right? It warns you about updates needed. Well, in fact, before the webinar, it warned me about this update here, and I didn't risk updating it leading up to our call, but I will after a call. However, for the third-party tools, right, for, I don't know, 7-zip or WinRAR or Zoom that we used to talk right now, they can be overlooked, right? And you can have a years-long vulnerability in an archiving solution that actually allows hackers to inject files into the system drive, as was the case with WinRAR. And typically, you need to keep track of those changes of those versions and automatically patch them. And this is what vulnerability assessment and patch management are for. So vulnerability assessment will identify those outdated programs, and not just outdated, not just for the fact of them being outdated, but we know that that particular version is known to have that particular vulnerability. Like someone can use it to plant malware, including ransomware. And patch management will automatically find the up-to-date version. If the current version is too old to be updated from directly to the newest one, we will find the intermediate versions, and we'll automatically run those updates as well. Right, that will be done on a schedule, that will be done in a safe way, because we have this fail-safe patching, also known as pre-update backup, before updating to something, especially something serious like next service pack for Windows. We will do a backup. If something goes wrong with the update, you can restore from that backup. And that recovery typically takes a couple of minutes instead of spending half a day rolling back the changes, because the recovery itself is incremental. So it will only overwrite the changes introduced by the patch rather than recovering the entire system, like all those many terabytes you might have. And that is a good time saver, and it's a good way to ensure business continuity for the system, right? So that's something to keep in mind as well. And of course, I can show you. Oh no, I cannot. It's I mean, there are vulnerabilities for Windows 10, but I don't have many tools installed on this particular system. However, believe me, we will see Microsoft programs, Firefox or Chrome or WinRAR or something else here alongside the traditional Windows tools, and you can update them in a regular, in an automated way, in the same fashion as Windows tools. So the focus of Acronis here in this particular case is to cover as many third-party tools as possible. I think we're a leader on the market with more than 270 tools last time I checked, 270 different programs that we care about, in addition to caring about Windows itself. So I think I can stop sharing at this point and actually go back to the presentation. And also there are, there is at least a question I want to answer as well. So let me first go here, play from the current slide, and well, let's keep this slide as an illustration. This seems awesome for a large corporate. How manageable, cost effective is this for a small business with just a couple of machines, NAS and so on? Well, actually, it is. I mean, our idea, our design is actually to accommodate this product both for large enterprises and for individual, smaller businesses and so on. So in that demo, you saw a huge list of one machine, but it was a table view, right? Presumably can be hundreds or thousands of machines. But for smaller enterprises, there are a different view with just a few machines that you can see there. You can apply protection plans to them and so on. For larger enterprises, there is an advanced edition with advanced features like central management, and indeed you can add those hundreds of machines, centrally apply to them. But for smaller businesses, there is a standard edition with, if you have just one machine or 5 machines or 20 machines, you buy a standard edition, which is cheaper, same console, just a bit fewer features. You can use them as well, right? For if you, yeah, like the example you mentioned, right? A couple of machines with a NAS, right? Perfect example for small business. Lots of our customers are small businesses and use those standard editions. You just buy you buy as many licenses as you have machines. You install agents on those machines. If you have a NAS, you just point that network folder on the NAS as your source for backup and take the data from there. You can use the NAS as the destination for backup. You don't pay for the infrastructure, right? You just pay for what you back up. And also in terms of the features, yes, I kind of, especially in the end of the demo, I went through all those features and patch management, antivirus, and everything. And it looks like, as a small business, you may need just few of those features, and you obviously don't want to pay for what you don't use. And in that regard, we also have you covered. So if you need just a backup and actually ransomware protection as well, so you want to protect that backup, you want to back up your machines, and you want to make sure that those backups are protected against that ransomware, against someone trying to delete them. You just buy a edition known as Acronis Cyber Backup, right? All that is included there. If you want something I mentioned in the end of the of the demo, with antivirus and patch management and everything, you buy an additional license, Cyber Protect, and maybe one of your 5 servers needs that extra protection. You buy the cyber protection license for it. Another 4 servers need just backup. You buy just backup, and maybe some machine just doesn't need backup, right? It needs it needs that internet security policy, URL filtering, right? For that, we also have you covered, because we have a edition called Cyber Protect Essentials, which is stripped of the backup functionality, almost all of it, but it has that crucial cyber protection functionality that you have on top of ransomware protection. Ransomware protection is everywhere. You can actually use it in any edition. But my point is that, yeah, you can decide how many devices you have. You install that agent. Actually, in one of my other slides, you can have a trial, right? You install this server. You don't pay for the server. You pay only for the devices. If you have 2 of them, you buy 2 licenses. If you have 2,000, you pay 2,000. It's the same console, 2 modes for smaller business and for larger business, and you use it that way. Do you have a dedicated tech to set this up? You can ask me or my colleague. So we have solutions engineer department that helps with initial setup, and I think we also have a separate service. So as solutions engineers, we can help you with getting started and with installing the agent on a couple of machines. If you have more assisted service, maybe more machines to install on, I think our support team has that service as well at some additional cost, but not much. I mean, it's cheaper than paying your staff to do it. So you can use that one. And yeah, just indicate on the poll that you want someone to get back to you, and this can be arranged. So yeah, we provide technical assistance and sales assistance as well. Yeah. Okay. Other questions? While I'm waiting for the questions, let me go through the rest of the slides. So what I wanted to indicate, all of you are eligible for a trial account. You can either sign up for a trial on our website, or if you indicated on the poll that you want our account manager to get back to you, they will organize that as well. That provides you unlimited devices and 1 terabyte of storage for 1 month. After that, yeah, feel free to either to sign up. In terms of management, I've been showing you something that we installed on our premises, but we also have a cloud-based management console. So essentially, you can get started as soon as you can. I mean, in 5 minutes, especially if you back up something that is also in the cloud, like a Microsoft 365. You use our cloud console. We already give you cloud agent. We already give you cloud storage. Just a few clicks, you tell us what to back up, and we'll back it up for you. But even for the normal backups, you can use that cloud, also known as hybrid architecture, as well. So you don't need to care about the console. You just install the agents, and they back up locally somewhere on your NAS, as another attendee mentioned, or to the cloud, or both as well. Right, and of course, those cloud data centers, if you need to comply with certain regulations, maybe you deal with medical data, or generally you're based in Europe, right, and you need to adhere to GDPR. Our cloud data centers are certified with all the major certifications. Again, if you are interested in Acronis and you want to explore more how it applies to your case, just let us know. Have someone from our team connect with you. They can provide you some specific certifications by request and answer technical and commercial questions. Okay. So I think on that, I can stop. Thank you very much. So hopefully that's been helpful. in terms of both ransomware and general overview of Acronis. If you have questions, please reach out to our team. Just use the poll and they will reach out to me. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for the session being useful for you, and hopefully, yeah, thank you for the feedback. And yeah, stay safe. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.